Aggressive young brand managers want to come in, make their mark, and then move on to new and different challenges. This can pose a problem of changing the brand strategy too often. How do you deal with that sort of problem of maintaining consistency in a world where the individual is really trying to make their mark and be successful?
It is an issue, but I think there are some mitigating factors. The issue is caused by the fact that many brand organizations tend to be meritocracies, which is a good thing, right? They tend to have a constant stream of people coming in, and those people need places to go. So you get this kind of bias towards movement and flux. And on balance, I think that's healthy. What tends to happen the more and more senior you go, though, is that churn tends to taper off. So whilst a brand manager might change every, let's say, 2 or 3 years, typically the people that they're reporting to are in those roles for much longer. So they can be more the keepers of the strategic flame to some extent. Additionally, advertising agencies tend to have a bit of a continuity factor, so that's another kind of a knowledge base. And many of the functions that a brand manager works with, for example, market research, that's a classic field where typically people in the market research world are not looking for a road to the top. They're really there to make a key strategic and technical contribution, and they're much more happy to stick around. So they will be real touch points that brand managers coming in and out of the business will tap into.
In your career, you've been in brand manager positions for a number of different companies, ranging from P&G to Boots in England and now to Bayer. How would you say the brand manager position differs across industries?
I think fundamentally it is very similar, at least in my experience. Now, you could argue I've been working in industries that are relatively consistent. So, I started off at Procter & Gamble in health and beauty care, evolved towards more over-the-counter drugs, but these worlds are quite related. Yeah. Same customers, the consumer being the key decision maker in many of these decisions. So I would argue that my experience has been more in companies that are a little bit more homogeneous. Yeah. So that could be one of the reasons I say that. That said, I think that everyone's watching everybody, and people certainly have emulated Procter, I would say, yeah, broadly speaking. And so having that experience early in my career probably gave me some insights there that I've been able to use, sure, in other businesses. I think there are differences. One of the things I would say is the cultures of companies are different, and that means that culture transmits itself through different functions, and brand management's one of them. So, the Procter & Gamble culture has a certain feel to it. It's quite regimented, it's quite fact-based, it's quite aggressive, and that transmits itself through brand management there. That's very different in other cultures.
What do you see as the future of brand management in a world where customers may be buying many of the firm's different brands?
Yeah, this is again one of the big changes that I've seen, in my time in this business. Going back a decade or two, the customer was, very fragmented. There were tons of them. There were mom and pop shops. There were kiosks. There were, drugstores. It just went on and on. They didn't have a lot of power because they were so fragmented. So they were essentially trading on convenience, location, some relatively generic things. And the balance of power was such that they really needed the manufacturers to supply them with the goods and to supply the market with the advertising to make those goods fly. With consolidation in retailers, that means that today in the UK there are kind of 5 retailers that matter. In the US it might be 10 or 11. But as those retailers have become more, become more consolidated, they've really built their power. And today retailers are trying to compete with each other with their own brand. The retailers have hired a lot of people from brand management, and of course what they're trying to do is to build their own brand. So a Tesco in the UK, or an Ahold, or a Walmart in the US, very much the corporate brand of the retailer becomes pretty important. So if you're a brand manager of Pepsi, you have to be thinking about your brand and how that matters, but also you have to weave that into the strategy of the retailer. And you have to think about a plan for Pepsi that makes sense, but a plan for Walmart that makes sense with your brand. So I think what we're going to see over the next kind of couple of years, and indeed it's already started, is this concept of retail marketing. So,
could you say a little bit more about retail marketing?
Yeah, I think when we tend to think about marketing, the kind of sexy part of marketing today, you think about national campaigns, television being a great example, or digital being another. That's really has been where the center of gravity has been in many kind of CPG type markets for many years. But more and more, retailers are expecting you to market in their space and based on their marketing tools. So if you're a retailer that has its own database and really wants to build loyalty among its consumers, they may have 3 or 4 different marketing tactics they will prescribe that you use. They will have display techniques and tools that you have no choice but to use. So you've really got to make marketing theater within their environment. They may have launch windows when they will take new products and they won't in others. So gone are the days when you can simply turn up with your checkbook and your new product and say, we're going on air in 2 weeks, hope you like it. Very much now you have to be thinking, of course, nationally and what you're going to do there, but how do I bring it to life in retailer X and retailer Y and retailer Z? And it might be very different based on those different retailers. And you really have no choice. You've really got to play ball there. Otherwise, you just won't get the presence that you need.